The Pine Barrens at night are not romantic. They're not mysterious in the way ghost stories make them sound. They're cold, wet, and suffocating. The kind of place where your flashlight beam dies after 20 feet and every sound feels like it's coming from inside your own skull. On November 14, 2019, Dr. Elias Crane walked into those woods with thermal drones, military-grade audio equipment, and a level of confidence that should have been a warning sign. He wasn't there to observe. He wasn't there to document. He was there to capture. Crane had spent 17 years chasing cryptids across 4 continents. He'd tracked alleged Yetis in Nepal, investigated chupacabra sightings in Puerto Rico, and debunked lake monsters in Scotland with the kind of surgical precision that made him famous in certain circles and despised in others. He didn't believe in monsters. He believed in undiscovered species, evolutionary anomalies, and the statistical probability that humanity had missed something. The Jersey Devil was supposed to be his magnum opus. The final proof that folklore always has a biological explanation. His drones picked up the heat signature at 11:47 p.m. Something large. Something bipedal. Something moving through the marsh with a gait that didn't match any known animal in North America. Crane's heart rate spiked. His hands steadied. This was it. But when he finally cornered the creature near an abandoned hunting blind, something was wrong. The Jersey Devil wasn't attacking. It wasn't posturing. It wasn't even looking at him. It was looking past him. Into the dark. And for the first time in his entire career, Elias Crane realized he might not be the apex predator in this scenario. The creature made a sound. Not a growl. Not a screech. Something closer to a word. And then it ran. Not away from Crane. Toward him. Past him. Fleeing something else entirely. That's when Crane understood. The Jersey Devil wasn't the monster he'd been hunting. It was the thing being hunted. And he'd just walked into the middle of a war that had been going on for 3 centuries. Let's get the Hollywood version out of the way first. Mother leads. 13 children. A curse. The 13th child born with wings, hooves, and a taste for violence. It's a story that's been told so many times it's lost all texture. But here's what the sanitized versions always leave out. Jane Leeds wasn't some random colonial woman who got mad and hexed her own baby. She was part of one of the oldest families in New Jersey. The Leeds family had money, land, and influence. They also had enemies. Lots of them. And in 1735, when Jane gave birth to her 13th child, the circumstances were strange enough that people started talking. The baby wasn't born in a hospital or even in town. It was born in the Pine Barrens, in a cabin so remote that most locals didn't even know it existed. No midwife. No witnesses. Just Jane, her husband, and whatever came into the world that night. The official story says the child killed everyone in the room and flew up the chimney. But here's the thing. Jane Leeds didn't die that night. She lived another 42 years. And in that time, she never spoke about what happened. Not once. The sighting started almost immediately. A winged creature seen near the Leeds property. Livestock killed in ways that didn't match wolf or bear attacks. But if you actually map the sightings, something interesting happens. The creature never attacked randomly. Every recorded appearance corresponds with a specific event. A fire. A drowning. A disappearance. The Jersey Devil showed up after tragedies, not before them. It wasn't causing the disasters. It was responding to them. And that changes everything. Dr. Elias Crane knew all of this. He'd studied every documented sighting from 1735 to the present day. Over 400 reports. Patterns emerged. The creature appeared most frequently during periods of extreme environmental stress. Droughts. Floods. Industrial contamination. It was almost as if the devil was tied to the land itself. A biological alarm system. Crane's working theory was elegant. The Jersey Devil was a surviving member of a relic species, possibly related to ancient pterosaurs or large bats, that had adapted to live in the Pine Barrens ecosystem. Its appearances correlated with environmental damage because it was defending its territory. The local folklore had simply misinterpreted a protective animal as a demonic entity. It was a theory that would have made him famous. It was also completely wrong. Because Elias Crane, for all his intelligence and preparation, had made one critical error. He assumed the Jersey Devil was the mystery he needed to solve. He never considered that the devil might be protecting him from the real answer. Crane set up his base of operations in an abandoned ranger station 3 miles into the Pine Barrens. It wasn't comfortable, but it was defensible. Steel-reinforced doors. High windows. Solar-powered electrical systems. He designed the place to function as both a research lab and a holding facility. Because Crane wasn't just planning to observe the Jersey Devil. He was planning to capture it. And on November 19, he succeeded. Sort of. The creature had been circling his camp for days, always just outside the range of his motion sensors. Crane had set up a network of infrared cameras and audio traps designed to map its movement patterns. What he found was disturbing. The devil wasn't hunting him. It was guarding him. Every night, the creature would establish a perimeter around the ranger station, moving in a specific pattern that formed almost a protective circle. Whenever something else approached, something Crane's equipment couldn't quite register, the devil would position itself between Crane and the unknown presence. Crane didn't understand. But he saw an opportunity. If the creature was already nearby, capture would be easier. He modified his approach. Instead of aggressive containment, he used bait. Not food. Recordings. Crane had managed to capture audio of the Jersey Devil's vocalizations, and after running them through analysis software, he discovered something remarkable. The sounds weren't random. They had structure. Syntax. They were communication. He played the recordings back on a loop, modulating the frequency until he found one that caused the creature to stop moving. To listen. To approach. When the Jersey Devil entered the clearing, Crane activated the electromagnetic nets. They deployed perfectly, wrapping around the creature's wings and limbs, grounding it before it could escape. For exactly 11 seconds, Elias Crane thought he'd won. Then the equipment started failing. Not breaking. Failing. The electromagnetic generators drained completely in under a minute, despite being fully charged. His backup batteries went from 100% to 0. The emergency lights flickered and died. Even his handheld radio, which had been working perfectly, started producing nothing but static. And in that static, Crane heard something. A voice. Not the devil's. Something else. Something that made the hair on his arms stand straight up. The Jersey Devil thrashed once, hard enough to snap 2 of the net cables, but it didn't try to escape. It was staring upward. At the ceiling of the ranger station. At the empty air above them. And it was terrified. Crane managed to drag the creature into the reinforced containment cell he'd built in the back room. It was essentially a large animal cage, steel-barred and padlocked, with reinforced walls. Once inside, the Jersey Devil stopped fighting. It curled into a corner, wings tucked tight against its body, and made a sound Crane had never heard before. It was keening. Morning. Over the next 3 days, Crane documented everything. The creature's physiology was impossible. Its skeletal structure didn't match anything in the fossil record. Its wings were functional but anatomically shouldn't be able to support flight. Its eyes had a reflective layer that suggested nocturnal adaptation, but they also showed cognitive recognition. Intelligence. The devil watched Crane constantly. Not with animal curiosity. With judgment. And every few hours, it would stop whatever it was doing and stare at the walls. At the ceiling. At the door. As if it could see something Crane couldn't. On the third night, Crane woke to find the creature doing something new. It was drawing. Using its own blood, it was marking symbols on the concrete floor of the cage. At first, Crane dismissed it as stress behavior. Animals in captivity often develop repetitive actions. But these marks weren't random. They were deliberate. Precise. Crane photographed them and ran them through every database he had. Alchemical symbols. Colonial-era property marks. Native American pictographs. Nothing matched. Until he isolated one specific sequence and ran it through a historical archive. It was a date. March 9, 1755. The date of the Great Swamp Massacre, when colonial forces killed over 40 Lenape families in the Pine Barrens. Crane checked the other symbols. Every single one corresponded to a tragedy. The 1927 mill fire. The 1963 plane crash. The disappearances of 1981. The Jersey Devil wasn't just marking time. It was marking deaths. And then Crane heard it. Outside the ranger station. A sound like wind through trees, except there was no wind. A sound like footsteps, except nothing was moving. A sound like breathing, except it was coming from everywhere at once. The Jersey Devil pressed itself against the far corner of the cage, wings folded so tightly they looked broken. And for the first time since Crane had captured it, the creature spoke. Not in sounds. In English. Broken, distorted, like a parrot mimicking speech it didn't fully understand. But clear enough. It said, "It comes." Crane didn't sleep that night. He sat in the main room of the ranger station with every light on, every camera recording, and a loaded tranquilizer rifle across his lap. Nothing happened. No attack. No movement. Just silence. The kind of silence that feels like it's waiting for you to make a mistake. At dawn, Crane went back into the containment room. The Jersey Devil was awake, watching him with those unnatural eyes. Crane pulled up a chair and sat just outside the bars. He spoke out loud, half to himself, half to the creature. He talked about his research. About the patterns he'd found. About the theory that the devil was a misunderstood animal. And the creature listened. When Crane finished, the devil moved closer to the bars. Slowly. Carefully. It made a sound. A low, warbling noise that rose and fell in pitch. Crane recognized it immediately. It was the same modulation pattern he'd used to lure the creature into the trap. The devil was imitating him. Trying to communicate. Over the next several hours, Crane and the creature developed a crude system. The devil would make sounds. Crane would play back recordings and match them to concepts. Yes. No. Danger. Safe. It was slow. Frustrating. But it worked. And what Crane learned shattered everything he thought he understood. The Jersey Devil wasn't born in 1735. It was summoned. Not by Mother Leeds. By something that had been hunting the Leeds bloodline for generations. The entity, whatever it was, fed on lineage. On the breaking of family lines. It sought out specific bloodlines with historical weight and consumed them, erasing their continuation from existence. The Leeds family had been targeted because they were protectors. Not of land. Not of wealth. Of knowledge. Knowledge about the entity itself. How to see it. How to stop it. Mother Leeds hadn't cursed her 13th child. She'd sacrificed her own humanity to create something that could stand against the entity. A guardian. The Jersey Devil was never the monster. It was the shield. And it had been protecting the Pine Barrens, and everyone connected to the Leeds bloodline, for almost 300 years. Crane felt the ground shift under his understanding of reality. But then the creature did something that made it worse. It reached through the bars with one clawed hand and gently, almost reverently, touched Crane's wrist. The moment they made contact, Crane's vision exploded. He saw things. Memories that weren't his. A woman screaming in a cabin. Not in pain. In defiance. A child being born not into the world, but out of it, pulled from some other place by sheer will. The child's eyes opening, already aware, already ancient. The mother collapsing, her life force draining into the creature she'd brought forth. And then he saw the other thing. The presence. A shape that wasn't a shape. A hunger that existed outside of physics. It moved through time like a predator through tall grass, invisible until it struck. It had no face. No body. Just an absence where reality should be. It fed on endings. And the Leeds family had been trying to stop it for 17 generations. When Crane came back to himself, he was on the floor, gasping. The Jersey Devil had retreated to the back of the cage. It made a soft, apologetic sound. Crane forced himself to his feet. His hands were shaking. He pulled out his phone and opened his genealogy app. He'd done his family tree years ago out of casual curiosity. He scrolled through the names, and there, buried 6 generations back, was a maiden name he'd barely registered. Leeds. Elizabeth Leeds. Married 1891. Crane's great-great-great-grandmother. He wasn't just a researcher who'd stumbled onto the Jersey Devil. He was part of the bloodline. He was marked. And by capturing the creature, by taking it out of the field, he'd left himself exposed. The entity could find him now. Crane looked at the Jersey Devil. The creature looked back. And in that moment, they both understood. Crane had 3 choices. He could release the devil and hope it would protect him again. He could keep it caged and use it as bait to study the entity. Or he could do nothing and wait for whatever was coming to arrive. He chose wrong. He kept the creature locked up. He convinced himself that if he could just observe the entity, document it, prove it existed, he could control the situation. He set up every sensor he had. Thermal. Electromagnetic. Infrared. Audio. He turned the ranger station into a fortress of surveillance. And then he waited. The entity arrived on the 7th night. Crane's equipment registered it first. Every sensor spiked simultaneously. Temperatures dropped 40 degrees in under a minute. His cameras showed nothing, but the audio recorders picked up something. A sound like tearing. Like reality itself was being pulled apart at the seams. The lights went out. Not flickered. Just stopped. Crane grabbed his flashlight, but the beam died the moment he turned it on. He fumbled for his backup, and it did the same. In the darkness, Crane heard breathing. Not his own. Not the devil's. Something else. Something massive. The walls of the ranger station creaked. Not from wind. From pressure. As if the building itself was being slowly crushed. And then Crane felt it. A presence in the room with him. Cold. Wrong. He couldn't see it, but he knew it was there. He knew it was looking at him. Judging him. Deciding. From the containment room, the Jersey Devil screamed. Not in fear. In rage. Crane heard the sound of metal bending. The creature was trying to break free. Trying to reach him. The presence moved closer. Crane felt his lungs tighten. His heart stuttered. This was how it killed. Not with claws or teeth. It simply erased you. Removed your continuation from the timeline. You didn't die. You stopped having ever been alive. And then the containment room door exploded outward. The Jersey Devil burst through, wings spread, claws extended. It positioned itself between Crane and the presence. The temperature stabilized. The pressure eased. The creature made a sound Crane had never heard before. A challenge. A declaration. The presence hesitated. For just a moment, Crane felt the attention shift away from him. The Jersey Devil lunged forward into the empty air, and Crane saw something impossible. For a fraction of a second, the entity became visible. Not because it wanted to. Because the devil forced it to. It was exactly what Crane had seen in the vision. A void. An unshape. Something that existed in the spaces between existence. And it was retreating. Not defeated. But checked. The lights came back on. The equipment rebooted. Crane was on the floor, gasping, alive. The Jersey Devil stood in the center of the room, breathing hard, staring at the space where the entity had been. Then it turned to look at Crane. And Crane finally understood. He'd been an idiot. Crane didn't move for a long time. Neither did the devil. They just stood there, two creatures caught in a reality that neither of them had asked for. Finally, Crane spoke. His voice was hoarse. "You've been protecting me this whole time." The Jersey Devil tilted its head. The gesture was almost human. "You knew I was connected to the bloodline. You were trying to keep me safe. And I captured you." The creature made a soft, clicking sound. Not agreement. Not forgiveness. Just acknowledgement. Crane looked at the broken cage. At his ruined equipment. At the claw marks on the walls where the devil had fought to escape. He'd spent 17 years hunting cryptids because he believed in science. In observable, measurable reality. He'd built his entire career on the principle that everything had a rational explanation. And now he was standing in a government ranger station in the middle of the Pine Barrens, staring at a 300-year-old guardian creature that had just saved him from an entity that erased people from existence. Rational explanation seemed pretty fucking inadequate right now. The Jersey Devil moved toward the door. Slowly. Testing. Crane didn't stop it. "Wait," he said. The creature paused. Crane walked over to his desk and pulled out his field journal. 17 years of notes. Observations. Theories. He looked at it for a moment, then tossed it into the corner. "I need to know something," Crane said. "Why didn't you just leave? You could have escaped at any time. Why stay?" The devil stared at him. Then it reached out one clawed hand and gently touched Crane's chest. Right over his heart. And Crane understood. The creature didn't just protect the bloodline out of duty. It protected them because it was part of them. Mother Leeds hadn't created a monster. She'd transformed herself. The Jersey Devil was her. Or what was left of her. Every person in the Leeds bloodline carried a piece of that original sacrifice. And the devil could feel them. It knew when they were in danger. It couldn't save them all. But it tried. For 3 centuries, it had tried. Crane felt something crack open inside his chest. Not pain. Recognition. "I'm sorry," he said. "For what I did. For what I thought you were." The devil made a sound. Low. Resonant. Almost like forgiveness. Then it turned and walked toward the door. Crane followed. Outside, the Pine Barrens were silent. The sky was clear. Stars visible through the canopy. It felt wrong. Too calm. "It's still out there, isn't it?" Crane asked. The devil nodded. "Once. Deliberately. And it's going to come back." Another nod. "What do I do?" The creature looked at him for a long moment. Then it spread its wings. Massive. Powerful. Impossibly real. It launched itself into the air with a sound like thunder, circled once above the ranger station, and disappeared into the darkness. Crane stood there, alone, watching the sky. He stayed in the Pine Barrens for 3 more weeks. Not researching. Not hunting. Just existing. He dismantled his equipment. Burned his notes. Erased every file from his hard drives. Because he finally understood something that should have been obvious from the beginning. Some things aren't meant to be documented. Some truths aren't meant to be proven. Some mysteries exist because they have to. On December 10th, Crane packed up his remaining belongings and drove back to civilization. He didn't file a report. Didn't publish findings. Didn't tell anyone what he'd found. But before he left, he did one thing. He went back to the cabin where Mother Leeds had given birth. It was still there, mostly collapsed, reclaimed by the forest. Inside, carved into the stone fireplace, was a symbol. The same one the Jersey Devil had drawn in blood. Crane pulled out a knife and carefully carved his own name underneath it. Not as a researcher. As a descendant. As family. He didn't know if it would do anything. But it felt right. When he got back to his apartment in Philadelphia, Crane found something waiting for him. A single black feather. Impossibly large. Sitting on his doorstep. He picked it up, and the moment his fingers touched it, he felt warmth spread through his chest. The same warmth he'd felt when the devil had touched him. Protection. Not permanent. Not complete. But real. Crane kept the feather. He also kept watching. Because the entity was still out there. The Jersey Devil was still fighting. And Crane, whether he wanted to or not, was part of the war now. He just didn't know it was already too late. 3 weeks after leaving the Pine Barrens, Elias Crane gave one interview. Not to a mainstream outlet. Not to an academic journal. To a small, independent podcast that specialized in unexplained phenomena. The host was a woman named Sarah Vickers, and she had exactly 437 subscribers. The interview lasted 22 minutes. Crane spoke carefully. Deliberately. He didn't use the phrase, Jersey Devil. He didn't mention the entity. He talked, instead, about the importance of respecting ecosystems we don't understand. About the arrogance of assuming that science has already categorized everything worth knowing. About the responsibility researchers have to the subjects they study. At the 19-minute mark, his voice cracked. He stopped talking for almost 15 seconds. When he started again, he said, "Some things protect us without asking for recognition. And maybe the least we can do is leave them alone." The interview was uploaded on December 15th. It got 11 views in the first week. On December 22nd, Elias Crane's apartment building reported him missing. His door was unlocked. His belongings were untouched. His car was still in the parking garage. But Crane was gone. The police investigated for 3 days before filing it as a voluntary disappearance. No foul play suspected. No evidence of struggle. Just another person who decided to walk away from their life. But Sarah Vickers knew better. She'd listened to the interview 17 times. She'd heard something in Crane's voice. Fear. Not of what he'd found. Of what he'd become. 2 weeks after Crane disappeared, Vickers received a package. No return address. No note. Just a USB drive. On it was a single video file. 43 seconds long. The footage was grainy, shot on what looked like a handheld camera in low light. It showed the interior of a cabin. Collapsed walls. Overgrown floor. A stone fireplace with symbols carved into it. And standing in front of the fireplace was Elias Crane. He looked directly into the camera, raised one hand, and carved something into his own forearm with a piece of broken glass. A symbol. The same one from the fireplace. When he finished, he pressed his bleeding arm against the stone. The camera shook. The image distorted. And for just a frame, maybe two, something else appeared in the shot. A winged shape. Standing behind Crane. Protective. The video ended. Vickers tried to trace the package. Impossible. She tried to verify the location. The footage didn't match any known structure in the Pine Barrens. She tried to contact Crane. No response. He was gone. Really gone. But 3 months later, hikers in the Pine Barrens reported finding something strange. A circle of stones arranged in a clearing that hadn't been there before. In the center was a carved wooden post with symbols that matched no known language. And wrapped around the post was a piece of fabric. When authorities removed it for analysis, they found two things. First, the fabric was from a jacket registered to Elias Crane. Second, the blood on it matched his DNA. But it wasn't recent blood. According to carbon dating, it was over 200 years old. The report was classified as an error. The evidence was filed away. The case was closed. But the symbols remained. And on certain nights, when the wind moves through the Pine Barrens in just the right way, hikers report hearing something that sounds almost like words. Almost like a warning. Almost like a promise. No one listens. They never do. 6 months after Elias Crane disappeared, a cyclist named Marcus Chen took a wrong turn in the Pine Barrens. He'd been training for a triathlon and wanted to test his endurance on rough terrain. The trail he followed wasn't on any map. It wound deeper into the forest than any maintained path should have gone. When his bike chain snapped, he had to walk. That's when he found the prints. They were massive. Easily 14 inches long. 3-toed. Pressed deep into soft mud near a stream. The kind of prints that shouldn't exist in New Jersey. Or anywhere. Chen took photos. Lots of them. He measured the stride length. Estimated the weight. And then he noticed something else. Smaller prints. Next to the large ones. These were different. Almost human. 5-toed. But the proportions were wrong. The arch too high. The toes too long. They walked parallel to the larger prints. Not following. Accompanying. Chen posted the photos online that night. Within 48 hours, they'd been shared 10,000 times. Cryptozoology forums exploded. Podcasts analyzed them. Debunkers declared them fake. But 3 people looked at those photos and knew the truth. Sarah Vickers, who still had Crane's video file saved on an encrypted drive. A woman named Elizabeth Crane Morrison, Elias Crane's second cousin, who'd been researching her family tree and had found something disturbing in the archives. And somewhere in the Pine Barrens, something that had once been human looked at the photos on a stolen phone and made a sound that might have been satisfaction. The prints were washed away by rain 2 days later. The location became a minor tourist attraction for exactly 3 weeks before people lost interest. The story faded. But the legend didn't. Because here's the thing about the Jersey Devil that no one wants to admit. The sightings never stopped. They've been constant for almost 300 years. Sometimes there are clusters. Sometimes months of silence. But it always comes back. Always watching. Always protecting. And now, every few months, there's a new kind of report. Not of a monster. Of 2 figures. One large, winged, impossible. One smaller, walking upright, almost human. They appear near accidents that almost happened. Near disasters that were barely avoided. Near children who wandered too far from home and somehow found their way back. The reports are never verified. The witnesses are never believed. But the pattern is there. If you know how to look. Mother Leeds didn't curse her child. She gave the Pine Barrens a guardian. And Elias Crane didn't die in those woods. He became part of something older than science. Older than reason. He became exactly what the bloodline needed him to be. The legend hasn't changed. We're just finally hearing the real version. And maybe, just maybe, that's exactly how it was supposed to happen. The Jersey Devil is still out there. Still protecting. Still fighting an enemy that most people will never see. And now it's not alone. Because sometimes the monster isn't the creature with wings and claws. Sometimes the monster is the thing it's been protecting us from all along. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop hunting and start listening. And sometimes, in the deep woods of New Jersey, on nights when the air feels wrong and the silence is too complete, you might hear something moving through the trees. Don't run. Don't scream. Just remember that some things have been keeping you safe your entire life. And you never even knew their names. The Jersey Devil isn't the legend. It's the truth we forgot how to see. And it's still out there. Watching. Waiting. Protecting. Until the very end.